the going digital part makes sense. That is something that we've discussed about in the past that, I did realize there was especially, like working at GameStop and seeing the aftermath of that, like, yes, like used game sales really did hurt the gaming industry a lot, bro, in terms of revenue coming in because, after that first copy is sold, everybody just trying to share up this one to two few used copies.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that goes to the distributor, not the actual person who put the hard earned money into getting the game published, things of that nature. So like, going digital was, something that I was definitely inspiring to do because yes, man, like, these companies, they put a lot of hard work into these things. Now, whether, things work out in their benefit or not, that's up to the gaming community, but at least, you just wanted to do your part.
Mm-hmm.
Digital game sales have been on the rise ever since the late PS4 era, and they've slowly, steadily increased because, to be honest, like, these systems have accommodated a lot to the point where, bro, technically that, those midnight runs like GameStop with a Red Bull in your hand doesn't necessarily need to happen no more. You got food at home on the couch, your game is preloading. And then when you look at it, like, especially with these games are getting bigger in files, like, bro, people don't want all them discs, bro. I don't want a 2-disc game. I don't. So I rather just like, make a sacrifice on my hard drive and just get the game in fullness and have a good time.
Okay.
But I do feel like, going digital is the best to keep things, and it goes back to what we mentioned earlier, like more centralized. Like, because I remember one time when the PS5s were coming out, like, Sony said, like, oh yeah, GameStop, we're only going to give you the digital version, by the way. And it was such a big jab because it was like, yeah, because we know how you guys go.
For you. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So basically it's kind of like, yeah, we did that. So that you could tell in terms of distribution games, like they're trying to centralize their markets. So like PlayStation Store, Xbox Marketplace, Nintendo eShop, everybody's trying to get a more centralized format where, the money stays in house.
Mm-hmm.
And, to be honest, bro, it makes sense. It just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And as a consumer, all I say is, please deliver on your promises. And that's all I got to say.
Okay. For me on the digital front, I kind of offer some of the same pushback I gave you guys both at the time. And this will always kind of be like the hill I will stand on until I see better business practices from these companies. I don't mean necessarily Microsoft and Sony. I just mean companies in general. I think, yes, I can understand the business side, and everything boils down to the business side, regardless of how I feel, right? It's all about, like you said, how can these companies recoup on their investments? How can these companies recoup on their hard work? Never going to take that away from them. The only concern that I have with going completely digital with any company is the fair market values, right? Tim, you and I have talked about this before. Jory, you and I have talked about this before, where you go to the PSN network or go to the Xbox Marketplace or the eShop and you see a game that's 6 years old that's still at full price. Meanwhile, you can go to a store and get the greatest hits version for $20, or GameFly, get it for $10, or Best Buy and get it for $8. So I think while I don't necessarily mind the digital marketplace being the forefront, my concern is they're going to kind of, weed out these alternative options of getting these games, and they're going to kind of hit you with the price as the price. And we've seen this with cell phones. We've seen this with laptops. We've seen this with we've seen this with streaming, where it's like, we're going to press up less and less physical copies. Yes, sure, it makes it more convenient for both the consumer and the producer. You don't have to print up as many physical copies. You don't have to find another bookshelf to store your video games at. But when I tell you, like, hey, you're not going to get to play Starfield unless you pay $60 because you can't get it anywhere else, then what happens? So that's something that I've always thought in the back of my head of, like, if we're going to get something where there's a fair market value put in place, like you said, Tim, in goodwill, okay, after 6 months, a game cannot be higher than $50 if it's a $70 game. And as a year goes on, it gets cheaper and cheaper, and that's the price, then I'm more on board with this. But if it's going to be something where I'm going to hit you over the head with the price, and I'm gonna hit you with the new PlayStation Plus prices on the cloud storage space, then I'll take my chances with my disc and my internal hard drive. Thank you, because you guys are just gonna kind of continue to pull my pockets to the extreme. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm not against it, but I do worry it's gonna get to a point of it's either us or else.
Because why is Call of Duty Ghosts still $59.99?
Case in point. Case in point. The game is years upon years old, and unless you catch it on one of those Veterans Day PSN sales, you're gonna pay full price for a years old game, and I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right.